Obviously, Worlds is underway. We've basically already played 4 games in each of the groups, 3 games each rather, and we're now at a position where we're not totally through the group stage. Obviously, we do another round robin, but we've now got some. I think already it's got really interesting because I wanted to start out actually with initial expectations. So first of all, I'll quickly briefly introduce people. Yasukeh here was obviously on a past episode. He's someone who is a challenger player on the NA server and primarily mains Tryndamere mid, which obviously now has become was a gimmick when I asked him about it on the other episode. It's actually relevant to this tournament. In fact, in theory, the best player in the world, Chovy's already tried to play it. Tried to play.
Definitely tried.
And also Perks played it, which obviously, as usual, means I have to hear loads of American people who riot pace to constantly tell me in derisive terms about the greatest Western player ever that every single player they don't like is an $11 million player. Meanwhile, didn't hear a fucking peep out of them about Sword Art all year long when he was in TSM. What's one of those things, innit? Just one of those things, right? Our other guest here is Keire, who you can see doesn't have a camera because this is going to be a unique example, right? This is someone who's from my Discord. He's basically just someone who follows CSGO, League of Legends, Dota. Just someone who's an enthusiast of esports games. But I just noticed from some of my watch parties and seeing people chat, I can tell basically the people who actually know sort of what they're talking about and have their own hierarchy of values and can hold a conversation. So it's a rare example of basically he's not someone who works in the esports industry, but I just thought it would throw in a bit of spice and make it an interesting episode because actually he has essentially a unique quality, which I think only I share in terms of people who are professionals, which is I've always thought my biggest selling point is I basically just say publicly on shows what I actually also privately think about the players, about the teams. It's why I'll always have like an edge to what I say, whereas here's the problem that a lot of you fans do not know. In fact, all of you don't know, just because it's hard to hold this in your mind. Almost every single person who comes on, to a differing degree, cannot say what they really think. They can just say some overlap between what they think and what they're allowed to say or what is polite to say. And the worst is people who, exactly the ones you want to hear from, players and coaches, because they all know in the back of their minds, I might have to play with Reckless next year. I might have to try and join Fnatic next year. I might be in a situation where I need to do a deal with them in 2 years. They're not actually totally at liberty like people imagine to really say what they think overall. So I basically, half the time, I'm even just like, that's not what he bloody said to me, probably, but whatever, I guess that's what we've got on record. So we'll see if it adds a different element here, because my watch parties definitely gives some bold opinions. Let's just start here, and I'll start with you, Keire, since you haven't been on any of the shows yet. Basically, I want to get your overall sense for just the landscape of Worlds. Like, obviously, the expectations, I noticed almost everyone did that thing where they came with the hottest take expectations, but they were nearly all based on playoffs in each region. And now, even though, again, we've only had 3 best of ones each played, people already have sort of radically had to 180 some opinions, or they've got really harsh ones. So what was your basic expectation coming in? Did you think there was a set hierarchy of teams would be good, bad? Has the first round robin phase, has it drastically changed where you're at?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. So basically, I had a set of the tier 1 teams. It was basically EDG, FPX, and Damwon. Then below them, I had 2 dark horse runners in terms of Mad Lions and RNG, and then below them I had LNG. Then there was a large gap of where other team spreads can be. Okay. And that's hierarchy's kind of moved about a bit, with FPX being by far the worst drop. They're definitely the largest ones I've caused for concern in terms of the performance.
Okay. Yasukeh, for you, are you someone where do you actually like to sort of start in a strong position and then move it around? Where were you coming into Worlds?
So probably the biggest sort of narrative that I was kind of thinking about is that with NA teams, there's 3 teams that had really, really high ceilings. There's no sort of FlyQuest or 100 Thieves from earlier years that kind of came in. So I thought that it was unlikely that we were going to have 3 NA teams with all high ceilings just all drop the ball. I expected at least one of them to kind of come up. And Team Liquid is kind of there, but not really. But yeah, the other 2 teams have kind of just dropped the ball. I expected Gen.G to be way higher than most people are rating them.
Yes.
Because they're just a team that's very boring to watch. And so everybody sort of equates boring with bad. But they all have really legit good players. And sure, they're probably not going to win Worlds, but I expected them to be 3-0 in their group. It
is definitely a fucking interesting double standard that, as you say it, people like Gen.G, Power of Evil, Froggen, depending on what periods you're talking about, they are just considered like not as good because they're boring. Meanwhile, I have to hear people tell me forever about how fucking amazing like Reckless is, bloody, I'm trying to think of some bang, like give me a break, man. Like, these are the same fucking players. It's just you've picked to like them because they win, and then the other one, you just go, he's boring, that shit. Right, along these lines then, let's just start with that topic, actually. There's a pretty good outsider one, because I actually heard very little discussion about Gen.G across all the shows and all the experts. Like, when Keire was making his list of teams, for example, I know way more people who, like, wouldn't have had LNG as high as he did, like his third tier. They'd have had, like, T1. Dude, some of them might even have gone crazy and just chucked in, like, I don't know, fucking PSG Talon or some wild one like that, you know, maybe they'd have some outside. But I actually found like everyone in all regions, it seemed like was just dismissing Gen.G. Do you have some thoughts aside from just the initial observation? Like, what have you thought of them so far? What do you actually expect of them in this tournament?
Yes.
The biggest thing that's changing, is it's unbelievable how good BDD's team fighting has been. It's like miles and miles above often his counterpart, and it's carrying Gen.G through these setups that they have round Drake, round Baron, round mid, where he's just outperforming most of the other people that he's being compared with. And it's really hard carrying the team. Like, he is playing into a really exceptional level, and it wasn't really a level I seen when I reviewed the region, but it's one that he basically came into Worlds with.
Yeah, they have some of the most disciplined team fighting I've really kind of seen. Like, they're not a team that has the sort of kind of like wild card strengths that is what is going to make you a super top team. But they have the basics of how to play like common macro situations really, really well. And it makes them win fights that they shouldn't really kind of otherwise win.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the reason why I actually expected, like you, that the base level should be much higher for this team, like, basically, I see them as like a dark horse. It's just, if you know how dark horse, they're not like a true one who I think could win. Like, there's just so many of the top teams would beat them. But I think the part that's underrated is, I think their basement, their floor level is way higher than some of these other teams. Like, I think put it this way, I would be surprised that already people are going to go, just because you saw the round of it. No, you can go watch the Summon Insight beforehand. I assumed they would get out this group. Like, I thought, like, they're going to get out the group, you're going to be in quarters. Maybe there's one or two teams they could get. Other than that, yeah, they're probably semis, best, quarters otherwise. But to me, yeah, it starts and ends with BDD. Listen, I've always thought he was slightly overrated, because for me, he was never truly like best player in the world or whatever. I always thought that aspect of it, sometimes he was just on the best team, and even then he had a boring style of player. But I do think, actually, now people are underrating him. Like, I agree with what Keira's saying. He has definitely stepped up at Worlds. Like, here's the difference. When he has a game on his ear, that's basically like his fucking main champion. Yeah, I expect him to be really good. But like the game he had today, for example, against Team Liquid, I looked this up. When he picks Silas, everyone else does that thing where they go into current meta and go, well, of course it's one of the strongest champions, and you know, it could be played. He doesn't fucking play that champion. He had played the champion 7 times his entire career, and he'd already won 1 fucking game on it. So that was actually like a statement game that they picked that for him. And they didn't even pick it, I think, at the end of the draft. Like, I think it was even like midway through or something. So to me, the fact he was even doing well on that as well, it's like, actually, if this guy's going to come to play and actually have like a world's buff, this team actually maybe is like more dangerous than people even anticipated, and they didn't have very high expectations anyway. What do you think, Keire, about Gen.G generally?
Gen.G have kind of got a problem. I feel like the people you expect to be good in the team, from my perspective, in terms of like BDD, Ruler, and Clid, only one of them is really living up to basically the billing in terms of BDD. Ruler has not been very, very great for me, to be honest. He's often found himself in really dicey situations, and he's kind of like misstepping. Has also a little bit to do with his picks that he's been given. I think the Callista game he was handed was a bit of a mix-up. I don't think he had a lot of agency in that game, so I don't think it was really going to matter. I think Birdall is a gaping hole of a weakness quite often that I've seen for Gen.G in a lot of these matchups, particularly if they were the more experienced LPL teams, the more elite LPL teams. I can see that just being blown wide open in terms of being abused, because they don't seem to have very good topside setups. Rascal as well as the other top player.
I don't understand why they swapped in Rascal for Birdall. Like, I don't see the logic behind that, unless they thought that Team Liquid was a free win and they wanted to just give some experience to Birdall. I can't conceive of any angle behind that.
Yeah, the ridiculous thing about that is, like, obviously, they probably just win that game easily if Rascal plays. Like, again, Rascal's also another player where I've always just thought, like, fuck, if this guy's going to always be in a top team in Korea, it does diminish your chances of winning Worlds. Like, top lane is a monster position for the last 3 years at least. So I agree. Like, put it this way, he is going to get brutalized by any of the fucking Chinese LPL teams than their top laner. Because, like, Alphari, in theory, in lane was always ahead of him, was always in positions, just didn't play around him, which is, by the way, let's just go into the classic one, Keire, because I know what your triggers are, mate. There's 2 triggers. One goes like this. It's just generally the career of Jensen, but we'll make that a sidebar later, maybe. The other one is, obviously, Alphari has had all this stupid drama attached to him coming to NA, and I've even seen some of the LCS fans have that whack angle of, like, how can he be the best? We didn't win any of the splits. Well, this is one of the triggers I want to set up for you, which is half the time that he's in these games, he's even doing everything you bought him for. He's winning in lane. Sometimes he's even doing it without the better matchup. He's in positions where he tries to go in and he tries to do fucking damage or tries to take over a team fight. But I get the feeling, this is why it'll probably tie into the Jensen sidebar. Dude, I get the feeling, like, I know he already in his career had a lot of teams where some of the teammates weren't as good. It's like in Team Liquid, they don't back him up on half the shit he does. What do you think on this topic?
Team Liquid is the Jekyll and Hyde of, like, this tournament, because I cannot handle Santorin's, like, madness level of understanding. He's literally, like, it's like taking him 6 months to find out that he can gank top lane. Like, this guy literally shows up top and stares at a fucking turret as Talon, and it's tilting my absolute brains out. It's so woeful. It's so awful. And then you have Alphari having to attempt to make these massive hero plays, on, like, Gnar and stuff, flashing over walls and stunning. But the ADC that he's going on to hasn't had any of their resources burnt. The people that he's, like, engaging on to, like, got more resources than them. Maybe he's had to have a flash burnt in lane from a gank. And so he's being punished and crippled by the decision making on these teams, even though he's getting, like, these Jax draft picks, the Gnar draft picks, like Jace draft picks. They're then not setting up for it, and it's like, well, this is fucking pointless, ain't it? What's the fucking point in doing this? You might as well just be in a tank.
You have any thoughts, Yasukeh?
Yep. So I want to say 2 things about how they're kind of playing around the top side. One is actually a rare misstep from Alphari in the Gen.G game that I've seen several times this Worlds, and it's something that players, I guess, haven't played against a lot, so they're still just not actually playing to the timing. But there's a new jungle path that's kind of been conceived to where you can hit level 3 like way faster than any other clear, doing red Wraith's Grump into top, and you'll get to top like 30 seconds earlier. And Alphari died and gave up a lot of pressure that he otherwise would have had because he just didn't respect that timing, even though, like, everything in the game shows that timing probably would have been hit. And I saw that happening to multiple teams at Worlds, so, like, that's just one thing that's on Alphari. But This is something that I also see as a very common trend. It's just so frustrating to see when there are 3 people going for a kill and the kill is 100% guaranteed. It's almost always like the tank or the support who's taking the kill. Like, in the first kill, it was Santorin on Sejuani taking the kill. And how do you expect Alphari to play if he's not getting these leads and you're also not giving him proper help? Like, what is he even supposed to do in these situations?
Yeah, that's the thing I think people also miss in the game is it's not even just literally like, I have a kill, what can I do with that gold? Or it's like, it also depends on the matchup. Like, you could sometimes that kill might literally be worth 3 times more on the top lane or the mid lane if it's a specific matchup. Like, in that scenario, if you actually factored in the cost, like, risk benefit analysis, you'd even find times where even if there was like a 10% chance you don't get the kill by trying to juggle it, it might be worth it if you get 3 times more value out of it. I always think that's an area that pros, like, are very poorly drilled on in the West, right? Keire, this ties in, like I alluded to there, to another topic that I know we've discussed a lot, but a lot of fans don't really think about because they don't tend to try and model teams. They act as though each player can just be dropped, plug and play into any team in the world and should just literally output the same stats, no matter who the fuck, what's going on. Like, I've seen this happen many times with the players who come from EU to LCS. So one area I feel like the Alphari story ties into Jensen is because, watch out, if Alphari stays in this team and has to put up with a few more years of this kind of, like, the team not setting you up to succeed, despite you being the best player, he will become become what Jensen is now. And when I see Jensen, half of his problems, in my opinion, one of the reasons he's gotten more and more passive over the years, and he tends to be a little bit more selfish and just stay in lane sometimes. I actually noticed, by the way, when Alphari was popping off, I actually would draw him out of lane to roam top sometimes. It's like he's got one player he can trust on the team. But I get the vibe with Jensen. He's just had so many passive / semi-dodgy junglers that, like, he just doesn't trust his teammates, mate. Like, he's not the guy like a Perks who's like, look, we're going to roam, and if we all die, by the way, and we look stupid, that's fine. This is how you win the game. You got to go for the decisive plays. He really does feel sometimes that he just lets the game come to him, and if he doesn't get favourable situations, he can be a bit invisible. What's your take on this, on the Jensen topic? Because I know he's obviously a very, I would say, sort of divisive player among fans.
Basically, Alphari knows how he's bread's buttered. In the TL versus Mad game, Alphari basically takes his personal lead that he has in the matchup versus Armut, where he's like owning Armut, who has the Jax. He's literally like 5 minutes in, the Jax has no pots, he's crashed like a massive wave. I think they killed the Jax eventually. He's got this great lane position, and he just fucks off mid and jumps on Humanoid, and kills Humanoid with Jensen and takes it up, because there's no way in a million years it looks like Alphari's burning his TP to go bot. He was doing it during like any regular split. I don't think I've really seen him do it at Worlds ever at all. He is not one of those, like, he's really not got that impact thing where he's saving the TP to cover like the TL bot lane. Those days are like long gone. He's definitely they're playing for the two solo laners like advantages. But again, you come into this problem where you don't have a team that's facilitating that. They seem lost and not understanding themselves. Like, Jensen's getting these TF picks, and it looks really, really bad. I'm really not understanding why Jensen is getting TF. It is one of the most powerful picks at World,
sure. But
personally, Jensen's own understanding of the pick is very, very poor. I would really like them to move to a more like LeBlanc, possibly Ryze-like style thing, because that still allows you to attack the side lanes, move into the jungle, look for the picks, something Jensen's really, really comfortable on. But the TF understanding on the team is very, very, very poor. They're not active with it. They don't use the ults well. It just really isn't the thing for me. You really need to like change it up.
Yeah, TF is definitely a pick that requires you to have so much team understanding, because Twisted Fate isn't a Jensen champion. It needs to be a Team Liquid champion if you want to play it well.
Yes.
Like, you have to play a very specific game to make it work. It's kind of really similar to Ryze in terms of the ceiling of how you can use Ryze. Ryze can be plug and play, but you're really not going to get the max value out unless you can get those kind of like roams top and stuff. I really see a lot of like weird like drafts with the last game that was today with Jensen. I feel like they just kind of counterpicked. They first rotationed Aurelia to take it away from Birdall, who is a really big Aurelia player. And they last second swapped to get Jax mid. And I feel like Aurelia is just not a Jensen champion. But because of the way that the draft went, they had to get Aurelia onto Jensen so that Alphari wanted to play Jax. And like these kind of weird like draft situations where they're also just drafting so much like into champions like Sylas and Trundle, who do really well into these kind of heavy melee comps, and just drafting in general from Team Liquid is just really, really poor. And they also are very similar to sort of Team Liquid or to Cloud9 in that it seems like they kind of have several different ways of trying to play the game. And you have Alphari, who should be the win con that they play around, but the rest of the team just can't play to that style for some reason. So it's just such a massive mismatch, and it just really isn't going to work with this current lineup.
Yeah, I mean, the weird thing for me about Team Liquid is the reason I'll never give up on them is because you just look at the lineup on paper and it's like, this is fucking fire. What are you talking about? This could be amazing. But I have to say, their success almost comes in spite of the fucking teamwork that they have. Because I think in terms of like raw teamwork, I know Cloud9 has issues. That's why it's a good shout, by the way, for an analog. Mate, it's like the fucking teamwork these teams have is trash compared to even like some of the like minor teams that you see that actually at least have a style and know what they're doing. Like, I get the vibe, no joke. If you could like download into the brain of Team Liquid the style of play that Fnatic was using in LEC, I mean, they'd win like 20% more games, because Team Liquid is the squad who doesn't have the go button where everyone goes in together and actually like coordinatedly plays. Like the three laners sometimes feel completely disconnected. Like I have no fucking clue. I genuinely, no joke, I don't even understand how Tactical views League of Legends. Like I get, people think I'm just like taking examples and trolling here. I'm not. Put it this way, here's the joke. When they picked him Ziggs today, I almost wanted to like fucking do a tweet like, people have told him you don't have to satchel into fights, right? Because the joke is any fucking escape ability he uses to go in and die in the middle of fights. Like, it's like he doesn't get the concept of what ADC is. Like, motherfucker, if you're playing Tristana, Ezreal, and I'm against you in solo queue and you're like a one trick on those champions, I can never catch you. You're always fucking jumping out at the last second. Like, that's what you do with those champions. He just gets caught all day, and I don't get it because he has one of the best supports. His other players are very good. He's definitely not called upon to be the main win condition. So I don't really know like how he's being coached or how they're telling him to play, because to me, the disconnect, he's one of the biggest ones, but Santorin's another one. The disconnect between certain key players on the team means that lineup on paper never really seems to manifest in the server. What do you think here, Keire?
This was egregious in the TL LNG series, where you basically had Tactical make the game completely unwinnable. He just gave up mid versus light. I think maybe 3 times we're talking. 3 times he just like instead of like queuing the minions from maximum range, was coming up to attempt to auto the minions with grab gun. I feel he was just standing there and he was just getting mowed down the lane. And it's unfathomable. Like, it's literally pertains to like a guy that's not actually understanding and not actually being inside like the team composition and the team idea of how they're going to win this game, and he's treating it like a game of solo queue or something, where he's just like, oh well, it's this part of the game where I farm the mid lane, and he's just feeding away massive amounts of waves, massive amounts of time, and when the mid section of the map collapses, that basically creates like a dead zone where your side laners can now no longer productively do things, because you're going to then lose the vision in the jungle to then be then attacked. So he's causing massive problems for even Jensen and Alphari to get anything like going in terms of like split pushing or attacking side lanes. It's really egregious.
So one thing about the whole sort of Ziggs pick is it clearly seems like he's just not comfortable on the pick. And this is a big thing that we see with other picks, to where when pro players pick up new picks, like, they don't really take the time and effort to try to understand how and why the champion should be played. Like, there are some teams playing the MF Yuumi combo, like the NA teams playing MF Yuumi, and they don't understand like how you can use both ults together to kind of get a really, really good MF ult on, which is the main reason that you sort of pick that combo. And if they're just not using these, they don't even understand how to use the champions, like, they just can't succeed. And I was also looking at the specific, like, one of the plays of Tactical getting picked off in the mid lane in the LNG game. And it's just such a basic situation where his mid turret's down. He can just wait for the wave to push into him. The wave was pushing into him, and he decided to walk up and then just got flanked for no reason. Like, he's going to lose maybe 2 minions to just stay safe and go back. But there's just no excuse to really make that kind of play, to just try to be so aggressive. It's not even aggression to try to get something. It's high risk and almost no reward.
Also, by the way, during the World Stage 2 of the World's Prediction Series contest, they have a deposit code where if you use the promo code DJEX50, letters and numbers there, you get a 50% deposit bonus up to 200 USDT based on any crypto. Right, let's just start there, actually, because that topic right there, Yasukeh, is one that I found was almost universal across all the talk shows, all the experts that I hear give their opinions, which is they were all super all in on FPX. Like, most people legitimately thought, like, you know, they're at the status where it's like, even if they don't win Worlds, you know, they're going to have to be in the final, or they'd have to lose the most epic semi. They basically had this team as like, I think most people thought it was like the most well-rounded team. I think some people even have Doinby as the best player in the world. They think, you know, it's like a team that like the style is so unique. So where are you coming at with this team? Obviously, at the same time, I don't want to overreact to like 3 best of ones. Obviously, they could still get very much together. But where are you at with them as a team now?
Yeah, I feel like this is sort of just them kind of not hitting their sort of ceiling. But I also kind of see that, like, there's so many sort of small things that they're doing just incorrectly. And this is something that I'm just this one little kind of nitpick that I just see that's just really frustrating is so many people on like AD carries or top liners or mid liners just picking like biscuits. Biscuits is just absolutely terrible after the nerfs, and you basically just don't have a secondary rune. And like these very basic mistakes that they're making, but I don't expect them to sort of not make it out of the group stage, which if they're continuing on their current play, it's a very real possibility that like Cloud9 upsets them, Rogue beats Cloud9, Rogue may get an upset, and then all of a sudden they're out of the group. I do expect them to probably make the bounce back, but yeah, they have... There's this idea that Rogue has been playing well because of how well they were sort of doing against FPX, but like Cloud9 played that game so poorly against FPX, and it was still an incredibly close game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So it's like if FPX is doing that poorly against probably the worst NA team, like their level must be just so ridiculously low in terms of like floor.
What do you think, Keire?
See, the problem with FPX is one of the ways to cripple FPX right now, and it's very, very obvious, is to pin Crisp to his turret. If you can pin Crisp to his bot lane turret and make it that he can't leave the map to 3vx mid or affect other places, set up plays, you have already given yourself a very, very good fighting chance of beating FPX. The Damwon series also kind of revealed to me a bit of an identity crisis in FPX. I do not think they fundamentally understood their only win condition. Doinb was making these half arsed attempts to attack the Jason to Graves, which to me, from what I've seen at Worlds, Jason to Graves looks like this breakable matchup where Graves just gets punched in the head by like triple dives, double dives, and he just laughs it all off and just continues to lane and lifesteal it back up. He doesn't get poked down the same way as other champions do. So I really feel like that was a very, very bad thing from FPX to do. They didn't understand that. I think the best thing to do was to set up 3-man dives and attack the bot lane, the Yume bot lane. Because you want to get Crisp away, but you have to have a lead on LWX, or every single time Crisp leads, this Yume bot lane is going to chase him down the lane and kill him. And he's going to feed away kills. And we've seen this when Crisp did attempt to leave the lane. I'm pretty sure they do just kill LWX with the combo, the carpet and guns. So it was really, really confusing. I was really, really disappointed because loads of the things I had seen from FPX just did not translate. And this just kind of continued on, onwards. Doinb's laning was a lot better in LPL. Hasn't really shown up, to be honest. Naguri's kind of plateaued. He's in a rough spot. I think the team's in a bit of disarray. That's not to say that when they showed up at the last Worlds that they won, they weren't that brilliant in groups, and then they began to level up as the tournament comes on. But I don't really want to try and pull a narrative across for a team that's a little bit different to an older version of itself.
Yeah, I mean, my take on the team overall is, look, they are still at least the second best team in the group. So realistically, even if they ended up in a tiebreaker scenario, say they get upset once, they're odds on to win the tiebreaker. So I assume it'll be like G2. They'll crawl through the group stage, but they'll get out the group stage, and then I would expect each best of 5 they play, they potentially power up and get better, things improve. Because again, the quality of some of the players that they actually have, they can be a champion of this tournament. Absolutely. I also wouldn't go too far against them because they lost a couple of best of ones, right? If we talk, I thought another team, one thing I want to ask about actually, because we're not going to talk much about Hanwha Life, yes, because of the Fnatic situation, maybe they have some miracle chance to get out the group suddenly, but the only angle I did want to ask about, for obvious reasons, Yasukeh, is we did see Chovy, who was being hailed as best player in the world. I think at this point in time, probably should be best laner in the world because we can't really know what he could do as a player in that team. What did you think of his Tryndamere mid-game? And obviously Perks played one as well, so if you maybe just want to give us some thoughts on this, because you've obviously specialised in this champion, and even though a pleb's going to go, that's fucking Chovy, it's Chovy hasn't played as many games and as many reps as Yasukeh, so I'm sure you saw some angles and some things he didn't do very well, right?
Yeah, for sure. So first off, I'll kind of go with the Cloud9 angle in that.
All right.
If they are going to make an upset, it's going to be off of mid Tryndamere. They're the only team that I've actually seen in this tournament who can properly play mid Tryndamere and understand how to draft around it. Cloud9's drafts have actually been really good. And the way that they sort of drafted Tryndamere was really, really good. It might have been because I also spoke with Cloud9 and like helped them in terms of like how to properly use the pick. That probably had something to do with it. But when it comes to Chovy's Tryndamere, everything about the play style, the build, the draft, how he actually played in the game, everything was wrong. Like he played. The reason that mid Tryndamere has become a thing in the past month or two is this Chinese Tryndamere, Chinese streamer on the Korean server who has gotten like top 10 in Korea with this Gore Drinker build. And the problem with the Gore Drinker build is it's so like solo queue-esque, and you kind of become a secondary carry when you play it. So it's not this super hyper carry Tryndamere that you would actually expect. Chovy played Grasp and Gore Drinker, which are both two really low damage, just super early game centric like styles. And then he didn't even really try to pressure the lane. The only thing that he got out of lane was like a 20 CS lead. And that's just because he was farming camps. He wasn't even denying Gragas anything. He's playing Grasp, which is a lane dominant rune, doesn't play to lane. And then also just in the context of Hanwha life, it doesn't make any sense because you're putting Chovy, who should be the primary carry on this team, the strongest player, on a sort of a secondary carry type of style. So it's just a terrible way of playing Tryndamere. I expect if it does get through bans that Showmaker is going to pull it out because it has been banned against Showmaker quite a few times.
Right.
And Faker played it quite a bit in solo queue. They might pull it out later in the tournament, but I don't expect Hanwha Life, even if they get out, to really they don't understand the pick. And I don't expect to see much good performances relative to how much they could do if they actually took more time to understand it.
Would you trade it for Aurelia? Sorry, just a quick question, Yasukeh. Do you think it's viable to trade it for Aurelia and draft? Or do you think no?
Do you mean playing Tryndamere over Aurelia?
No. Like, would you call it not banning like Aurelia and like not banning like Trynd and leave them both open to then like trade it? Because like people will snatch up Aurelia like almost instantly, and then you yourself taking the Trynd.
Yeah.
Do you think it's like worth giving that up to then guarantee yourself the Trynd ban if they themselves don't ban it? Because then you get the Aurelia one if they do. You see my point?
Yeah, that'd be a really great way to use it, because even if you do trade it, then like Tryndamere is a really great matchup into Aurelia. It's one of those matchups that has just been really, really hard for her since the beginning of Aurelia rework. So that would be really good to just not ban either and just trade the picks.
Right, what I wanted to ask you about, Keire, was just actually Chovy as a player, because obviously he has this like almost contentious element to him. It reminds me actually when Alphari was on bad teams, where people either think he's just the best because he does actually like do amazing shit considering he has bad teammates, or they think like, yeah, but the guy who's the best also has to show me all facets of the game, and if you're just not in a position to carry sometimes, you can't really do it for me. So where do you come down on Chovy?
I think he's exceptional. Like, I actually do think he's exceptional. It's just the problem is in League of Legends right now, there's like a minimum bar onto like certain like things, like fundamental things teams need to like understand to like enable players to have the agency to win the game. And if you don't have that, you will literally just sit in like idolism. Like, think of the years that like Rookie had players that were just so subpar. He was exceptional. We were styling on every LPL mid, and then he would finish like 5th, 6th, maybe a win one playoff game, and he done that for split on. Chovy seems to have gotten himself into the exact same kind of like Elo hell tunnel, to be honest, in terms of Chovy should have like world-winning teams built around him every single year of his career. Chovy should be attempting to win worlds, be in the final of worlds every single year. Like, he should have what Showmaker has around him as a core, but he should have the opposite end, the other talent in Korea around him as a core. And the failure to do so is either just a problem within the Korean system, or it's a problem with Chovy himself if he's taking up bad team offers and things like that. It's just depressing to watch, to be honest.
Yeah. Something similar to Froggen, where like he could have done so much more if he actually chose to surround himself around good teams, but something was stopping that.
Yeah, I would also say this, like, even though I totally agree on the teammate point, like, I personally even thought the DRX team wasn't quite good enough. Like, you saw the jungle and top needed to be a bit better, if they were really going to win Worlds or something. I do think they had a hard draw, unfortunately, last year in the quarters. Like, I'd love to see them at least play someone else. Maybe one of the Chinese teams would have been interesting. But I personally think, like, not only does this guy have fucking terrible taste in teammates and teams to sign to, like, if people haven't seen it, the joke at this Worlds at the moment is, this guy's getting fucked by Morgan and Willer. And so you'll probably think, what's that? A fucking family, like, legal office that's fucking getting him a divorce or something. Give me a break. Like, these guys are garbage. Like, there's no universe where they should even be at Worlds. Like, it's actually a joke. So if you're looking and you're going, like, he's not carrying, like, how's he going to carry like that? You can't literally 1v9 the game. Like, that's just a fucking metaphor when people say that. But here's my problem with Chovy, and it ties into what you were saying earlier, which is this. Not only, like, that particular pick, did he pick and play it in a way where it's like, dude, how are you even thinking you're going to carry this game? But it even reminds me of the year that he went with Griffin to Worlds. And famously, they had the series against IG where he was playing motherfucking tanks and bruisers mid while they put the carries on the famous tank player Sword in the top lane. Right? The problem in that scenario is, right, unless you think it really is just some coach who picks all of them, it implies to me he's sort of having some say in these picks and he's thinking these are good picks. But my issue is kind of like what you were saying before about the way he maybe thought of the mid Tryndamere. I get the feeling that he really is like a solo queue player. Like, he is just like the master of solo queue. It's always why I actually wondered. The reason why I never personally was like that. A lot of people were like, Abdo might be good in solo queue, but would he be good in competitive? It's like, mate, Abdo's whole shit was literally like teleporting around the map to getting kills and like basically figuring out how to like make his team into a team while playing a solo queue game. Chovy just plays like an amazing mid laner who just, the ones that are like, just like, wow, I got up on CS, so that's sort of a moral win, even if they lose the game. And you're like, bro, but that isn't the game though. Like, sometimes you might have to give up waves, you might have to die in a fight to win the game. Like, I get the vibe. I don't know. I feel like he maybe has trust issues. I don't know if he's like ticked over completely. I don't blame him in these last two teams, but I feel like there's something is a bit off with his mentality.
Yeah, it's kind of like how
I think he should be a top laner. Sorry, on you go.
Yeah, it's kind of like how Uzi in some situations where I remember one situation where he was on Ezreal Uzi and he farmed Wraiths because he couldn't ever give up any sort of amount of farm. And he ended up being late to a team fight and losing the team fight because of that. And I feel like Chovy might actually be kind of like that, to where he's not making these sacrifices because he just wants to, like, in a cynical way, look so good that it doesn't seem like he's the issue, when he could totally be doing more in these situations, potentially.
I think he's passing that. If he wants to like be on like quality teams, that like if he could continue to do well away mid and hope for like better teammates and that. But I personally like think it was LS that said that, and the more I've thought about it, I think it's, as I kind of come around to the sentiment as well, I think he should just do a Xiaohu and become like a god top laner, to be honest. Like, he wants these like tank picks and all that, and he's just got this bag full of champions that he plays and stuff, and his laning's impeccable. If he could take that to top lane, he could literally like win, and particularly in LCK where they're obsessed with top lane no matter who's actually playing the role. He could win huge amounts of games through like matchups understanding, laning understanding, because if they isolate matchups and they leave Chovy on an island, he's going to leave body bags all over the place.
I feel like so many mid laners should be role swapping, but they just have too big of an ego to do so. Like, Damonte is still trying to make a career as a mid laner in the LCS when he could just swap to support and instantly get a slot. Like, these players just have way too much of an ego, and they can't give up being the anime protagonist in mid lane.
Faker as well.
I mean, by the way, even someone like Damonte should maybe considered top lane. Like, not only is the champion overlap, but I just think to myself, mate, this is a league that kept giving Viper jobs. Yeah. The fucking top lane, like the Dignitas, like that guy was like good for like fucking 4 games in a split 3 years ago or something. Like, this is mental. If people, that just shows you which roles are depleted, and those are ones you got to go for if you want the gig. No, the problem I have as well goes like this. I actually also get the vibe with some of these weird picks that Chovy does. This is one thing I hate in League of Legends. Because people are too used to superstar players being really egotistical and basically just saying, like, Piglet off a given style, like, just give me my champion no matter what the draft is, no matter what the comp is, like, just give me it because basically I'll win the game, right? Like, the problem with that is people go the other way, and they typically want you to be like, no, everyone in the team is equally good and could all carry depending on what pick we get, right? Well, if you're someone like Chovy, I want you to be really selfish. I don't want you to go, yeah, I'll take this champion that, like, I guess in theory, if my top laner was really good, we'd win with this comp. It's like, no, because you know that's not going to happen. Like, you actually have to. Your responsibility, if you are Chovy in that scenario, is to tell me the champion that you could win the game for us on. Not that you could be like the fucking sidekick on, and then this guy, we have to just pray he gets 3 times better. So there's like a classic problem in League where, because in theory, being selfless is like so encouraged, I understand why. It can go too far the other way though, and it just becomes stupid. Like, it would basically be the equivalent of like an amazing scorer in basketball just constantly passing to the worst player on the team. Like, yeah, it sounds great to see you pass to the worst player. You're going to give him confidence, but you're going to have a better job shooting that shot than he is. You have to also consider like what's best for the team, and sometimes what's best for the team is the best player fucking gives himself the tools to win the game. That's just a reality, and no one wants to hear it, but it is a reality. So if we switch it up, right, another team I thought it would be interesting to talk about would be Edward Gaming, because here's the flip side of what I set up about FPX earlier. I've said this on many talk shows, but I'll tell you, just go and check all the previews and you'll find this is the case, right? Everyone's take generally fell within this bucket. It went like this, right? I either love LCK, in which case I think Damwon, number one, they're going to somehow be the best. Or if I'm not an LCK lover, FPX is secretly the best. They should have won the semi-finals and they have all the pieces to win Worlds. Now, what's mad is I'd be fine with that take if then everyone went, but you got to give it up to EDG. They are really good and then their third team. No, the amount of people with the third team is either I'm an LCK fan, therefore I'm taking T1 to miraculously get this lineup together. Or the other angle is I do watch LPL, but I'm still on the RNG hype train. And I get it, because listen, RNG is a very aesthetically pleasing team to watch. Even the way they intelligently play the game with certainly at times lesser players is very clever. But I can't believe people have actually looked past EDG, because you don't have to have them as your favourite, but I think people are almost disrespecting this squad. Like, this was literally the champion of the number one region in the world. Keire, what do you think of EDG? Obviously now it's also perfect time for me to say it because they did 3-0 the group and they are looking pretty good.
They're the best unit. Them and Damwon are the two best units. The biggest problem with EDG was like Flandre and JJ was sometimes, it was almost like the team had VOD reviews. 3 players sat in one room and Flandre and JJ sat in another room and they had a different VOD review on how the team should be playing, and they've done this for like 2 splits. But it seems like they've actually managed to like go to the same room now, where Flandre and JJ basically actually like set up for the wider game vision, not just their own like ideas on like how like the top side should be played. And they do genuinely look like the best, one of the most cohesive and best units at like the tournament. They have, across the aggregate, they have by far the best ADC player. It's not even a joke. Like, the gap between Viper and the next human being is unfathomable. It might be the largest like positional diff at the tournament from 1 to 2. It's enormous. He has got the most experienced, one of the most experienced support players in the world. A guy that's basically just a veteran through and through, Mako. And then the rest of the team's just filled out beautifully. You've got Scout, does his thing. JJ, great mechanical jungler. And you've got Flandre, who's basically been playing like a rock top. Very, very good right now. Looks really great.
What do you think, Yasukeh?
Yeah, I think like just every player on the team is performing so well, and like their cohesion, there's just nothing super fancy that they're doing. They're just strong on every level. Like a team like RNG has some super unique strategy to play the game, but EDG just kind of plays relatively standard, and they're just really good at it. Like they're a team that it doesn't seem like they had any sort of weird issues or weird like missteps in synergy that the team had. Like, it just seems like everything has clicked for them for this Worlds, and at this point I think that they're at least like top 3 chance to win Worlds, at least in their current form. And I don't see them kind of like getting worse over time. Like they're just going to get better with these players.
My main hope, especially in light of what I've seen in the first round robin phase, because obviously in the brackets all lock as to where people end up and if they get to play each other. I just want to see EDG play against Damwon. I think that would be the best of it. It doesn't have to be in the final, but just give me that matchup, because that's the one I really need to, like, basically that's an example of where it's like, it's the same as happened at last Worlds. I know, yes, Suning had an amazing run, but like, just for the competitive storyline, it had to be Damwon against top esports. That was the matchup we needed to see, just to know who would could win it. By the way, as a fan, think it through. You could even believe top is worse, but maybe in that matchup they win. That's why it's actually important we don't just shadow box these games. We need to see them played as well. It's one of the reasons famously it always comes back to like if there was a lower bracket, but there isn't, of course, so whatever, that's a hypothetical. Right, what about this? So another team that obviously has been, I would say again, I set it up before that it depends basically how much you love the LCK. If you love the LCK, T1 is like the new fucking KT roast. It's just all the fucking hopium just rolled into one. And you're essentially gambling on things like Faker was good in the past, so he'll just, magically turn up like it's 2015 or something. You're hoping that Gumayushi has all these skills. It's mainly like the potential argument. So maybe he could be incredible at tournament. And then you just go through across the board and they do it with like every player. Right? I personally think that, look, the group that they've gotten is fabulous. Like, this is a group where you should definitely get out. There shouldn't be any problems there. I have my reservations about T1 though. Keire, where are you at on T1?
I genuinely don't think they themselves fundamentally understand how they're going to win this tournament. To win for T1 to start being like a serious good team, they need to start drafting Gumayushi and Keire like bot lane winning, like bot lane 2v2 killing lanes, and that's how they need to run the duels. They need to lawnmower all the other like laners up. They need to create bot differentials that are going to cripple teams in terms of like how they want to pick, because that is what Gumayushi and Keire do when you have them on the team. If you're not going to do that, have Teddy there. It's pointless. Like, literally just have Teddy there if you're going to do this thing of scaling up, playing to sides, and then showing up to team fights. But they're playing Gumayushi and then picking things like Ziggs, and to me, it's utterly pointless. It's unfathomably stupid. Like, you're not going to have a puncher's chance against the teams that are more elite than you if you don't play towards your actual player's own strengths.
Yeah, I think that like they have really good players on their team, but they have so many like clear and defined weaknesses. And the only way that I really sort of see them getting anything past quarterfinals is one, maybe if they play against Gen.G and they have some kind of weird like stylistic mismatch because they played against them so much. But like the only way that they're really going to get any further than quarterfinals and not just get smashed by one of the other teams is if they sort of like find ways to avoid their weaknesses. And like that's going to be really hard against a lot of the teams that they would be facing as the first seeds.
What I thought we'll do to discuss the rest now is, I thought a team that would be interesting to jump to and discuss is the aforementioned Royal Never Give Up. Because unfortunately, if they were, as I said, the team that people sort of just had like a soft spot for, or people just like their style of play and they have a very defined playing style, I don't feel like we're actually going to get any answers out of this fucking group now, though, because of what's happened to Fnatic. Because realistically, if you look at the group, Fnatic losing Upset, and especially obviously like Upset in terms of his role within their team, is irreplaceable. They do not have a sub who's anywhere close to level. We could probably talk about them as a team separately in a minute, but basically it has meant that, like, no joke, on paper they should go 0-6. There's no reason they should win a game, basically, especially because their style was super all-in anyway, so it's going to be super hard for that guy to adapt to that. He's not playing a classical ADC style. Then you consider that Hanwha, as we've already waxed lyrical about, is basically a broken squad that has no real reason to win, and then even their star player almost hasn't got the fucking memo that he has to try and 1v9 the game. So actually, what's mental is, as the current standings go, the second best team in the group ended up being PSG Talon. Now, here's the thing. If PSG Talon is the worst or the third best team in a group, that's a fucking interesting group. I'd like to see that group play out. There's some interesting upset potential. If they're the second best team, realistically, Royal Never Give Up could win 5 or 6 games in this group, and we won't really have any answers about, are they a tournament champion? Are they a favourite? Like, I don't feel like they got the competition to go against. So, just based on what we've seen so far, thoughts on RNG, Yasukeh?
Yeah, so it's just so hard to actually tell what this team is going to be like when it comes to the next stages of the tournament, just because they've had no real like pushback from any of these teams. And it's like you can really just look at what has been going on in the LPL for like answers to them, but there's not really anything that we can see of like their current form in Worlds, and like if like some kind of meta changes have actually stopped their playstyle from actually being able to work against the top teams. I don't expect that to be the case, and I still expect them to probably be like pretty good, but I don't necessarily have a good read on this team just because it's so hard in this group.
What do you think, Keire?
I think they look so sloppy. I think they're at borderline trolling. When I seen Zhao Hu flash to go farm minions, and then it resulted in that Olaf getting a triple kill on the team, right? That's when I knew they're not actually taking this seriously. And you can say whatever you want, they are like, that is trolling to fucking a degree that, like, when I seen that, I was like, these guys are literally, like, they're laughing, like, patting each other on the arm and shit on the cameras. Like, they are not taking this anywhere remotely seriously. And they're not even the RNG of old. They were playing against Hamwa. Ming genuinely tried to force a fight 3, 4, 5 times where he had people out of position, people were having to like out overreach with like their long range abilities and shoot into targets that were like not very effective and all that. And I'm just looking at it and I was like, this is not the RNG that like I had seen in the LPL, where it would be one deadly engage from Ming and they would chop the head off the opponent and that was it. It was just a dead carcass they were playing against, because it was like that key Drake fight or the key Baron fight. Zhao Hu appears with all his farm and they win the fight. That's just really not. Look, Zhao Hu's been getting his leads, but the engage, the vision setups, the laning has been very, very, very sloppy. The only thing I would say that is actually a bit like, I'll go out on a limb here, is Crying looks like he has actually like put a lot of time into understanding it, and they have only played TF mid, but they actually look like they do. Crying has actually gotten better as like an individual player in the context of this, and they do actually look like they somewhat are understanding the pick a lot better and are using it very well. So that's a good thing to see, so because they'll be able to contest the other teams on it.
Sure. One thing I'll say about this team, this is the charm that I actually like about this team, because I actually do think, by the way, if you know how strong some of the LPL teams are that didn't even come to this Worlds, and how strong the top 2 teams are at this tournament, like, they have just better rosters than RNG does. But what I like about RNG is, like, in theory, and obviously not in these games, like, they are very cohesive. And one of the things I think is almost a hack is, dude, Zhao Hu, now he is a top laner, is almost on some, like, Doinby shit where he just controls the game. Like, bearing in mind, so much of this year has been about how you play around the top laner and get them ahead, etc. Well, the joke is, because he's basically the shot caller and the former mid laner and the top lane star and the most experienced player, like, and then his other main laners are super inexperienced players who are below him in the hierarchy, he can essentially just shot call the whole game around himself top lane. He can basically, like, fix any lane, get any gank he wants, play any champion he wants, and so you see, kind of like when Doinby's on his shit and the whole team operates around him like a machine, it makes them really good, and it means that they're a super unique team to play against. So you can't just play against the teams in your region and think you're going to go against RNG. It's going to be the same sort of par for the course, you know. So I do think if they can power up in the playoffs, they can be a team that could be like they are the dark horse. I didn't mind people picking them. I just thought the fact that they were headed like EDGs of the world was egregious, you know. Mm-hmm. Does anyone think they can actually win Worlds?
Their playstyle is just so horrible to play against, because you basically show up, like, you use your abilities, you show up at the lane, you clear the vision, and Zhao Hu's just not even there. He's actually like inside your jungle, telling your red buff, and then he TP's out, and you've like seen it, like, completely missed him, and it's just like you're wasting so much time, because they are the best team in the world at setting up side lanes. They're unparalleled at doing it. Zhao Hu's like out of laning, wave management of like where to put the wave and when to pressure the wave in the context of what else is happening on the map is like the best in the world. And it just looks very, very frustrating, because you basically never get a pitched battle against RNG unless they want to give you it.
Yeah, I think this is really just like the epitome of what it means to be a sort of cohesive team, is that you can punch way above your weight. But I also like, EDG is not a team that is not cohesive. Like, I don't really think they have any chance of winning Worlds simply because of EDG. They might have an off chance of beating Damwon with their style, because of just that team is just not as strong without Nuguri. But I don't expect them to ever really win, simply because at some point they're going to have to face EDG. Okay,
right. Here's what we'll do, Keire. I'll give you a pick, right? Pick a team that we haven't talked about so far that you would be interested in talking about. What would tickle your fancy?
LNG. I would like to talk about LNG, because I think LNG have 2 of the best players in their positions at the tournament. Though I think that will not probably be enough for them to actually be even a quality side. They've got Ali, or Ale, however you want to say it, who I think is one of the best top laners at the tournament period. I think he's got all the champions, he's got all the picks. I'll give you a comparison. He's basically been what Ben was last year at Worlds, but he can actually control his wave and is like smart with it. Like he'll like put it in front of his tower and just hold it there, so you have to overextend to be like ganked and stuff. And then obviously they have Tarzan, who's arguably just the best mechanical jungler we've ever seen in League of Legends, and he just the team isn't anywhere as cohesive as any of the other LPLs. Their style isn't as very good. They're nowhere near as consistent due to other factors on the team. But they often can have a puncher's chance because between Tarzan and Ali, they can often outmuscle lineups and basically attempt to attack their weaknesses, particularly if they're a weak topside team.
Yeah, like Tarzan isn't just a good mechanical jungler. He's a jungler who's just like, he's always in the right spot, and he always just, when I look at him playing, I just feel like there's such an immense like presence that he has. And it just feels so like suffocating to play against him, I'd imagine. And like this is also a team that sort of does have like clearly defined strengths that they have been able to play through properly, that can make up for their deficits elsewhere, similar to RNG. They are a pretty good team, but I don't imagine they would make it super far in Worlds, just because other teams can nullify their strengths enough to where their weaknesses can be like punished heavily.
Yeah, the problem I think is like they should be a gimmick team. Like, look, it's not even guaranteed they get out of this group. There's obviously mad upset potential between the two teams, Mad Lions and Team Liquid. We've already seen that. But imagine they do. The best case scenario basically is like to get RNG, like a team that you already basically beat. That's like the best case possible quarterfinals. Any other quarters, like realistically, they should lose. These other teams should all be better. The other teams have better players at the other positions. They actually have like at least they can switch up the style that they play. I think one of the problems that I have with this team is like I do think Tarzan is fabulously good. Like he really might be the best jungler in the world. When he used to be on Griffin, I know people used to think I like overrated him because at the time everyone was just putting all the hype on Chovy, and like to me it was like actually, as you've seen from that team, those three players were all fucking amazing, hence why they're all at Worlds now years later on different squads. But to me, Tarzan even back then was mega. And that was back when I was essentially just having to watch the VOD like every Western player did back then and just guess from the minimap what the guy's pattern is and why he does it. Like you were talking about this the other day, Keire, but if you basically go and watch a Tarzan pro view, he's one of those players where even though you're seeing his pro view, you're seeing what his vision is and the way he's clicking and where he's pathing, it makes you think like, I actually know nothing about League of Legends. Because some of these moves, I don't understand why he's doing them, but then when he does them, it's like, holy fuck, he just understood the game in a way I can't ever understand it, you know?
It's like when they pass frame perfectly around like the bush as like Lee Sin and knows exactly where the ward is and like walks right in between the two forms of vision, cues like from the darkness, hitting the person that he can't even see because he knows where the guy is in perspective to where he just shot a screenshot, and then Lee Sin kicks him into the team. Like, that is literally something that Tarzan does in mid-team fight, and you're just, because you can see it from his POV, and you're just like, what the hell is that? This guy is a legit genius in terms of what he can do mechanically with his hands, and like specifically inside team fights. The amount of times he's picked off backline targets, ADCs, mids, and Lee Sin kicked him, but not even just like, he'll get greedy with it, he'll kick the mid player through the support. Like, just cause. I was like, alright then, Tarzan, no worries.
No, I mean, he's just a player where if people don't realise, it's kind of like the Chovy situation. They've just got to do something about like how they managed their career. Like I understand in Tarzan's case, it was sort of a redemption case to come back to the LPL and be in a team because people were using that stupid logic of like, his team got relegated. Like, yeah, not because of him, you morons, but okay. But I do think in it, like when you think about how good the LPL teams are, either LNG has to shell out big bucks and get better players, or he has to just eventually move on to a better team because like you could basically already win Worlds from the way he's playing. He just hasn't got the team to do it. Like, it isn't going to happen this year.
Yeah, he's definitely a player who deserves to win Worlds in his current form.
Yes. Oh, if you made one of those classic lists, I might even do it where it's, like best players that haven't won Worlds, like of the active ones. He would definitely be near the top of that list, of course. Like, he'd be like probably top 3, top 4. Right. What about this? Yeah, go on. What was the final point?
I think they're actually like an elite mid laner away from being like a top team. like contesting for a top team. They're like on the like Chovy away, like some person like that away from being like an elite level team, because the bot lane in itself will be good enough. Like I want to have a lot of synergy. They play a lot of matchups quite soundly. Light is very, very safe ADC. He is just an LPL ADC. He shows up to team fights. He auto attacks well. He spaces well. He uses his abilities efficiently. It just tends to be the icon being exposed as often where I can see this team just faltering, because he has a lot of problems in terms of like his own strengths mid and laning, and he often has to be covered for by Tarzan a lot.
And if people don't know, just to completely tilt you, like Nelson basically told, because he used to be on LNG, that it was supposed to actually be Tarzan and Chovy on the same team, and then Chovy was like, "Nah, we'll just stay in this dogshit team and cricks, whatever." Because I guess apparently instead, Chovy's like fucking death pact is with fucking Deft at this point in time. Anyway, they just must. It's like, let's just ruin our careers together. Yes, brother, you and I till the end. Like, and then they just waste years off their careers again. But we won't go into the Deft topic because that could last for hours. Right, Yasukeh, what team do you pick? What would you like to talk about?
I mean, the last team that really has like strong narratives that we could really talk about is probably Mad Lions.
Yes,
like a lot of people expected them to be top of the group. Some people expected them to be even like top 4 at this Worlds.
Yes,
but like, one of the biggest things that I feel like Mad Lions is honestly kind of riding on the hype of sort of G2, where everybody expects that Europe as a region is on this particular level, where like they're always going to get to at least like semifinals or something. But that was G2, that wasn't Europe. And just because like Mad is sort of far and away the best team that was at Europe, aside from maybe like Rogue if they didn't have sort of choking issues. The fact that sort of Mad has all of these like untested aspects of like Alioya being a rookie jungler, like there's going to be a lot of issues there, and the fact that they lost to Team Liquid, who doesn't really have any kind of cohesive playstyle, like they are mad disappointing this group stage so far.
Thoughts, Keire?
I genuinely can't even begin to fathom my disappointment in this team. Them, along with FPX, are having an identity crisis on how they fundamentally should be attacking these teams. You have Humanoid. He might not be Caps-esque level, but he is a very, 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 very good mid laner. And Aloya and him had been winning 2v1s and 2v2s in LEC all year round, and now there is just abandonment of the role. They are not playing through Humanoid, and that isn't unlocking the other strengths within the team. The other player I've got major issues is not the people like who are like in games like Armut, where I just kind of expect that, but people who are actually good that like bring Mad Lions level up is Kaiser. Kaiser has done nothing at this tournament. No joke. Go watch this guy's like engages, he's roams, he's triple invades with like jungle and mid, and then he's like moving top to then invade the exact same side to go secure the enemy team's blue buff. Sorry. This guy's doing nothing. And yes, he's on Yume for one of the games, so you know what I mean, effectively you're playing like a 1.5 champion. But in the other games, the Rel game, there was nothing there. There was no key engages. He wasn't really looking for like bush flanks. I often seen him not like being that diligent with like trying to clear like the flank wards and the TP wards and clearing those out. He's been really disappointing at this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think that Mad Lions suffered from is basically you nailed it with like the G2 comparison, Yasukeh. People did this thing where, one, G2 had established this notion that the best European team should be one of the best teams in the world and can even win Worlds. By the way, I would say that's a ridiculous standard to hold them to, since they're probably, aside from Moscow 5, the only time in history that ever existed for the Western team. So I'd already call them the outlier personally. But the other thing that happened is this, because G2 had 4 of the 5 players still. It was just Reckless being replaced. People acted like Mad beat G2, the real G2, and sort of took their power anime style. Now they're the one with the fucking glow. They didn't. Like, realistically, think about how Mad Lions won the first championship. Well, first of all, they barely did. It was almost in the fucking toilet, and they almost got 3-0'd. Then, in the summer, again, they don't dominate the best of ones, but they get to the playoffs. Yeah, they look really awesome, until you remember, everyone thinks Rogue's shit in series now, so okay, there's one. And then Fnatic, consider it was a 3-0, they had one game that actually they almost made interesting, and that was a team that could have gone 6th place. So when when I suddenly add in the context, it isn't super dominance. Like, winning 2 times doesn't necessarily make you dominant. Like, it's the fashion in which you win. It's the opponents that you beat. Like, if you want to talk about G2, one of the reasons why they were incredible was, like, they were beating very good teams. Like, they were beating, like, the Origin team that was very good, and the Fnatic team that was very good, and the Team Liquid, in fact, like, they weren't beating nobodies. So I do think people got overhyped on Mad Lions. With that said, the depressing thing, like you both pointed out, is they haven't really played Mad Lions style either. Like, they haven't shown off the charm that they had. Like, one, the more I watch them play, man, the amount that they really do rely on Humanoid making, like, all the right decisions is fucking crazy. Like, you can see that this guy just is the brains of their team. And then the other thing I have that's a massive problem, I have to say, is I definitely agree, Keire, like, Kaiser's just being invisible. But the other thing is, mate, that lane is just Kaiser. Like, Carzzy fucking... I know there's a lot of players I've already ragged on. Tactical, Ruler, quite frankly, didn't do that much. I feel like a lot of the ADCs aren't having much impact this tournament. Dude, I think Carzzy has no fucking impact. Like, this is another guy who just dies for free.
He's
like, it's just crazy. Yeah, it's mad. I don't get it.
A flash forward to kill a Leona that has used all her abilities. She has literally used her ultimate, her stun. She has initiated. The Leona is now a steaming pile of dog shit. And the player that has all of Mad Lion's resources, because he's not been coming to the fights, he's been picking up all the farm mid, flashes forward to start ulting her, and he explodes and just detonates before your eyes. And if you're the rest of the guys, you're Humanoid, Armu, and a lawyer, you're just watching him die and you're going, oh, fuck it, that's our chances of getting out of this group if he's going to continue to play against that. It's going to be impossible. Like, the guy is literally doing, like, moronic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the thing that Perks said when Carzzy was trying to sort of, like, flame Perks and stuff ahead of MSI. It's like Hansama was beating Carzzy 5 out of 5 lanes, even though they lost the series. There was still, like, Carzzy is not a super impressive, like, best LEC player.
Yes. I mean, put it this way, for someone with 2 championships from a traditional carry role, it's got to be one of the weakest players we ever had from LEC. I would say this as well. Another thing that I find depressing about this is, like, as a team, like, on the Kaiser Elyoya angle, they're not playing bad. They're just sometimes not doing much, or they're not doing what they would do in LEC, right? The difference is this, though. I actually don't blame Elyoya that much for that. It's one of the reasons I personally am not on the LEC train of, like, just get rookies for every position. It's like, last thing I want of fucking the World Championship is a rookie jungler who is literally just like, oh, so this is the level that we can play at, is it? Like, and you're just finding that out now? Like, what? Like, mate, that's why I've always thought people were way too quick to write off Jankos. You know, everyone thought, he's going to be gone at the end of the year. Mate, his experience, like, I know they changed the jungle role, but just experience of how to hang in a game, play from behind, play when the comp goes to shit, like, that is worth its weight in gold in League of Legends. There's a reason why jungle and support, they might be a lot of rookies making good performances domestically, but you look at, like, the elite teams in the world, the teams that should win the championship, there are some amazing veteran players who play those support positions, play the jungle position. There's a reason why those guys endure. Like, those are the roles that to some degree don't always have to have hands, but tell you what, you better have a fucking brain. So I didn't expect Elyoya to necessarily be the player he was in LEC. I thought he's an obvious one that should take a dip, but I agree on Keire's point. Like, you can't have Kaiser also just disappear, because at that point in time, it's just Humanoid, isn't it? Like, Armut just does this weird shit where he almost is comparable, like fucking Darian from Moscow 5. No one really understands it. Is he supposed to even be good? Is he supposed to even be a carry? Yeah, he picks Wukong all the time and sort of makes it work, but, like, I still don't even know if that's, like, the right pick. Like, logically, you're giving up times where you can just pick a meta champion and smash if you're actually the best top laner. So I still don't really understand their team. That's why I just say they're one of those teams where in the game I have to just give you credit if you win and say you must be very good, but I don't really know how you're getting away with it. Like, I almost do feel like this is like a fucking bank heist. It's like, you can't just keep hitting these banks and never get caught. And some of this feels a little bit like they've gotten caught, but I also think some of this is inexperience. Again, some of these players aren't super. 2 players. This I know they're going to go. Armut was at Worlds, yeah, not in this context. Like, he was basically like, you know, fucking. It was almost like a pro-am tournament where the fans play. Like, give me a break. So yeah. Anyway, we'll go and do another one then, right? Keire, what team do you want to pick now? What should we swap over to?
Oh, I think we need to talk about Rogue. We're not talking about Rogue. We need to talk about Rogue. Yeah, Rogue. They've been handed, like, one of the toughest groups, but one of the things I just did not expect, even though he didn't really have his own personally good year, is the collapse of underwhelming at this tournament. It's been really depressing, like, really, really, really depressing to watch this. Losing, like, every single matchup. He, like, gets the Graves into the Jacks, plays it so poorly that even though their team comp outside of lane has this brilliant like synergy and ability to like execute massive AoE damage onto Damwon, the Jax having the 2-level lead and the 4 kills coming out of lane just completely warps that game. Like if that gold lead hadn't been hemorrhaged, Rogue I actually do seriously think had the potential to upset. And then on the other side of the map, you have Hans Sama basically just playing like his absolute heart out. Like this guy came to Worlds and he is fucking people up. They keep losing with this Nami like Lucian lane, like the 2v1s. I don't think they quite understand like how they should be like using it. But the amount of assassination attempts and the amount of pressure that Hans Sama is making on the other ADCs when he's left solo mid or 2v2 mid is really, really impressive. It's like 5, 6, 7 kills he's getting on the enemy laners and enemy ADCs when he's just left isolated with them. So I do see the strength of it.
Thoughts, Yasukeh?
Thoughts on Rogue? Yeah, they're like I don't know. Like they're definitely not performing, especially underwhelming. Just kind of looking over their stuff, and yeah, Hansama is also doing well. Like it's just the problem is that I don't really they're not really in a sort of group where they can have anything to really kind of prove themselves against teams that are like slightly above their weight. I really would be interested to see them in one of the other groups where they can actually like do something, because even I don't know, I feel like FPX was a team that they could have done something against with the quality of play that FPX was showing, but like they're not getting it, and that shows that there's something like up with their team to where they're just not performing at the level that like they should, especially just looking at how good they've been like before in the season.
Sure. I mean, here's the real killer. Bearing in mind, obviously, they were supposed to be a potential LEC champion. If they'd essentially have just come second, they would have the Fnatic group. They would actually have a group where everything's up for play. You maybe even come number one in that group if you get your shit together, as people thought Fnatic indeed would. Yeah, one of the problems here is that I'll give people a little side story, because people have heard this story now, that I basically did one of my like rare but like moves where I sort of tried to myself send a ripple out through the world of League of Legends and potentially affect things, right? Which is I sent out a pre-game, pre-tournament message to Odoamne where I basically gave him like the pep talk. And I basically told him like, everyone's going to underrate the team and think you have no chance. Everyone thinks obviously like, you're just like a good but not that great player. You in the past, you have been able to neutralize all the great players you've gone against. You could basically be the key player here. You could be the game changer. You could help them get the best of one. That's going to mean suddenly there's a path to a tiebreaker and you get out the group. The problem with doing that, right, and this is why actually I don't often do it, is the joke is the 2 times I told the story of doing it was this one was with Odoamne, which has obviously worked out fucking terribly so far, and the other one was with Perks before he played against IG, because obviously after that like LeBlanc game 5 against RMG, I was like, they could do it, holy shit, I knew he was the best all along. And so I tried to give him the pep talk, like, look, just because they're Korean, like, don't like assume they're better than you, like, you know, use your creativity. I give him the whole pep talk, and obviously again he also gets fucking head smashed in and like there's zero chance whatsoever, and the joke is we just never talk about that, we just pretend it never happened because it's too awkward to address it, like it's just not fun. I know I addressed it on like a crackdown for the bants, but like we never privately ever bother like messaging like that again. Just leave it. This is why I don't do it though. People don't get this. I have a long track record of when a great player loses a tournament, like when Doublelift went out to some of the worlds, or people like Device and CSGO. Sometimes I'll message them after the tournament, like a message to sort of say like look, you know, you'll be back in this position again, like just prepare yourself, you know, maybe even take in mind like how painful it is and use that as a motivation factor to build up your mental. I usually give them that angle. But actually the reason why I don't tend to do the pre-game one is, unfortunately, this is why narratives are a big deal in League of Legends. It can psych people out. It actually can make them, unfortunately, overly concentrate on that. It's the reason why it sounds boring. But if you ever go and actually listen to the really, truly great champions in most sports, it is boring. But what they do is the opposite. They don't think like, right, I'm the hero and I'm going to take this last second shot. And when I make it, I've won the championship. And that means they do the opposite. They actually try to pretend it's like just a practice game. Like, nah, this shot means nothing. So just throw it. Like, don't think about anything. Just like, if anything, just use like your subconscious that you've trained to do the shot. Don't even try and put conscious effort in it, because it's like the famous thing where if you, like, I'll give you an example. If you were playing games, right, so we all play games and we're not looking at our hands. Try looking at your hands while you do some of the moves. You'll fuck everything up. You'll start, even when you're walking in the street, just try thinking about literally your walking motion, and when you do the left, right pattern, you'll actually stop being able to walk. It's mental. Like, you'll overthink it. The speed will get all wrong. Whereas obviously unconsciously you do it perfectly, don't you? You'll stare around people. Famously, there's a thing like that, I'll give one last analogy. Supposedly the guys who work on the skyscrapers who have to walk along a girder before they've built it out, that's how you do it. Supposedly what you do is you don't look down, you look at the end point you want to walk to, and the idea is your body just keeps you straight after that. It doesn't really start going, whoa, like leaning one way or the other. Your body just knows to go left, right, and you don't think about it, you just walk through it. So unfortunately, I do think that like Rogues had their chances, but like the right players weren't online in the game. Like it can't just be Hans Sam. It's not even really like the fucking ADC meta. Yes, it's a team fight meta, but it isn't like ADC rules the world. So Larson has just been invisible. It's not even that he's been bad, he's just invisible, which is my main problem with him. And Odoam has just had his massive issues, hasn't he? I will say as well, just I put this on fucking Blabber, so I have to do it to you as well, Inspired. If motherfuckers are telling me every split, justifiably so, you're the MVP of the whole league, can you at least be the MVP of your team, maybe? Is that too much to ask? Because I feel like some of these junglers, like, holy fuck. Listen, I realise I'm not a jungle main, so I will have this dog shit opinion, but I think jungle has so much agency in the game with some of the picks these guys get. I really would if I was Blabber or Inspired. I wouldn't come out and go in the review session, well, you know, I made a few mistakes, but I wasn't the worst. I would go like, yeah, my bad, guys. Like, I see all these holes and windows I could have taken advantage of that I didn't. Any thoughts, either of you?
The only thing that's really refreshing about Rogue is after watching Kaiser, I think, oh my god, this guy's playing dog shit. And then Trimby shows me how dog shit someone really can be. Because this guy has played like fucking pish. He has done nothing all tournament apart from int his ass off over and over and over again. This guy on Nami was like trying to attack side lanes. I don't even think he understands conventionally how the pick, like, thank God, like, this guy had perks literally TP in front of him with ult and bubble up. Because I'm pretty sure if it wasn't so blatant, he would like fuck it up and like try and bubble his own teammate or something. He has been diabolical at this tournament. Really, really bad. And Hans Sammer's got to drag this body bag around with him in lane and pretend that they've got to play these like winning matchups and stuff. It's embarrassing.
That is the obvious position I've been saying all year, but it's the obvious position you'd upgrade in Rogue at this point in time. Like, it's just... The problem is, though, I have to say, it's not as easy as people think, because my issue with that team as well is, I think if you just look at the way they play, there is clearly some element of shot calling they sort of miss in this team. So I'll give you an example. If you look at the players that are out there, on paper, I would say, fuck, sign my boy Mickey X up, get in with Hans Sammer, imagine what they'll do. Problem is, they already played together years ago. Supposedly, that was the bottler that the Latch never spoke. And Mickey X is not really a guy, as far as I can tell, who's super vocal in the team. So, again, it's all those ones where it's hard to play Football Manager with teams because you don't really know behind the scenes what they really need beyond just in the server. Right, we'll maybe do one more. So, Yasukeh, who would you pick? What's the last team we're going to talk about here?
I mean, we never really went in depth to Cloud9. Is there any other teams that we could really talk about in depth?
I mean, we didn't really talk about Damwon much. It's up to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about Damwon. They're just really, really good. Everything is solid. Like, they don't look as dominant as they've been before with Nuguri, but sort of like everybody on their team is kind of just doing what they need to. Ghost is still not a super impressive AD carry. He's still like doing a lot of these kind of like ints, and Damwon's bot lane is still just kind of like getting sort of carried by their mid jungle, but I don't think that it's as bad as it could be. Like, if there's any team that somebody like Ghost and Barrel could do well in, it is Damwon. Just because the sort of roles that the team are set up in pretty well. But yeah, the team overall just seems very solid, and Canyon and Showmaker are still probably, I would still just say, the best mid jungle duo in the game, in the world, at least at this tournament. And yeah, I think that Damwon is very well set up to go pretty deep, if not win.
Thoughts, Keire?
The only caveat I would say about Damwon Gaming is, like, they have very, very strange matchups into like teams like EDG, because EDG's ball lane is so strong that like people like Mako and Viper are going to do things to like Ghost and Beryl that will be like deemed illegal. Like, the Riot stream will have to be turned off. The other problem is we haven't had Can piss his pants yet, and I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop and for this guy to just fucking choke a couple of games out in a series or something, because he's actually played like very well this tournament.
Sure.
I even seen it myself when he was on silent duty in LCK. He still has very, 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 very weird plays, weird moments, points in the game where he just randomly disconnects to the idea of the team and what like they'll be doing on, but he'll just like charge in a Sion and like die, like. But there's like the Drake's already secured and the other 4 members are like walking back. So these are maybe weaknesses that can be exposed, but they are just such a solid thing.
I feel
I
like
just don't think it's consistent.
Yeah, I feel like with Khan, this is something we talked about in the last Big Brains episode, is sort of like mentality, is that Khan knows that this is his last sort of tournament ever. Like, he's not going to be playing League of Legends after this. So I feel like if there's any sort of like fire under the ass or motivation for him to just be the sort of the peak of everything that he's had in his sort of career, like he has everything going for him to sort of have that desire to sort of prove everything wrong that was about his career, like all of these sort of like chokes and all these situations where he should have done better than he did. If there's any situation where he's going to perform really well, it's in this situation that we're living in.
Definitely.
Yeah. The thing is, though, I definitely agree with Keire. Like, I'm just waiting for when the old Khan comes out. Like, it's like fucking Naruto or something. There's just a demon buried in this motherfucker that eventually he's going to come out. Funny enough, like that Shelton's come out when he's sort of at his weakest point in it, and then he just gets taken over. Except the difference is the demon would actually make you win in Naruto, whereas in this case, just fucking ruin it, won't it? The problem with that team I have is this. On paper, it's been the same the whole fucking time. They've had all the Damwon versions. The bot lane was always the weakest in theory. It's just that like Beryl had like weird off-meta picks he could sort of make work to still confuse you. And then secondly, in Korea at least, people don't actually tend to build around bot lane. It's actually why if you look teams like that have Ruler and Deft, like they're always good, but they're very rarely the best team in the region. I mean, classically, Prey and Gorilla basically like pioneered the style, just like Bang & Wolf played, where it's not about the ADC. It's about what you can do for the rest of the team and just never being behind. It's almost how actually we view top lane in the West, funnily enough, where we don't have as many of the carry players that you play through. It's more like you play the tank and then it's easier to play this way. So it shows the difference in philosophy. The problem goes like this. No one can fucking do it though. Like everyone thinks, I just attack the bot lane. Yeah, G2 thought that last year. How'd that work out for them? Fucking didn't work. So my problem is, it's basically going to have to be like EDG. I mean, maybe just in terms of how the team FPX players, they can put pressure there, but the top side of the map is still so good, as it has been in all the versions they've had of Damwon, that it's like, even if you get you can do some damage there, you're going to still have a really hard time matching up against the top side. So I understand totally why people had Damwon as their pre-tournament favourite. They might even be the best team. Like, they also just show in League that it's not about like having all the strongest players. It's about how you offset the weaknesses of the weaker players. Mm-hmm. As long as they're not actual gaping holes, like they aren't the players in this. They get by. Beryl sometimes a bit dodgy, but Ghost actually is fine. He seems to understand at least how you play when you're the third carry, as it were, you know. He doesn't try to go and then, he's not the guy just in the games away. So in general, I don't really have any complaints on Damwon across the board. Like, I even thought some of the bullshit that happened this year was almost like they were bored. It's like in that region, they knew they were going to win every single split. There wasn't really a real chance that someone was going to beat them. And as a result, they experimented with stuff. People maybe even had individual slumps in motivation. I'm sure the whole time they were scrimming the Chinese teams. And now I think we're going to get to see the kind of the fruits of that. Have anyone got any final comment before we wrap this?
Yeah. If everyone can go get a chance, go watch a Canyon Pro View and watch how often he pings where the enemy jungler is, like without vision, for his laners and the bot lane specifically. Go watch that, because it's something very interesting. This guy is literally like fucking playing with radar hacks. It's really, really, like, without having like preset up vision, and often he has got an unnatural sense of where like people are themselves going to gank, which has maybe come from him like superimposing himself and how he would like attack the map and stuff. But it is something like really, really, really impressive. He does that like an awful lot.
Mm-hmm. Any closing thoughts, Jessica?
Yeah, I'd say one angle that I can kind of talk a little bit more about mid-Tryndamere, but then extrapolate it out, is everybody that's playing it, even despite how many games they have, they're still just playing it so poorly, like mechanically and just everything that they do. Like, there's been several missed Tryndamere ults. There's been several times where somebody will just ult incredibly like early. And it does take a lot of games to learn champions like this. And it makes sense why players like Armut will play something like Wukong, even if it's not the best pick in the meta. It's something that they can play to the absolute limit. So even if like them playing the weaker champion might actually be a better fit, because even for these pro players, they're still just not able to pick up champions in like 30, 40 games. Like some champions require them to play hundreds and hundreds of games to actually truly understand the limits of the champions. And so like it's looking at how people are picking up Tryndamere makes a lot more sense why teams aren't as creative in drafts, because you have to put so much effort into learning these sort of new champions. And you see a lot of similar things with like Ziggs tactical. Like if you don't put a ton of games on these champions, you're just not going to perform on them.
This video was kindly supported by Lager15, Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Skaparen, Travis Goff, Zack Schmidt, Adam Ochs, Alexander Rao, Animosity, Butt Pounder 420, Chris, Hades, Jdubs, Jensen Goh, John Shelton, Joseph Ginsburg, Kovacevicd, Tobias Bernasconi, Zoomba, Zyrathenia, and as always, a special thanks goes out to both Jerky's Minion and DZL. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Would you like to ask a question for my monthly AMA? Want teasers for upcoming content or interview guests have I done, etc.? Do you want to take part in one of those donated discussions? Well, if you want any of the above and previously mentioned, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scroomalati today at the description box link to Patreon.